Greetings once again, fellow girls, guys and gamers. This is Small Archangel welcoming you to this episode of Rising World Survival, and we're taking a break from building in order to save what we have already built, or at least a large proportion of it. I think I said in the end of the last episode that we were going to do some blueprints today, and that is because we are anticipating having to leave this world, or rather not strictly having to. I have decided it's time to move on to a new save and a new series, but we can take our builds with us right here in our journal. So this is a sort of pseudo tutorial. There are people who know more about this than I do, I'm sure, but for anybody that hasn't used the blueprint system, it is brilliant. It does allow us to make copies effectively of any of our favourite builds, and they are available to us through different saves as well. So the blueprints folder is located in your Steamapps, common, RisingWorld, of course, in the general data folder for the game, and any of the blueprints we make are whatever save you make them in, you can access them in any other save. So this, for example, was in my first ever save, and it's one of my first ever builds, as was this farmhouse here, and I think the wood cabin there. But you can see that I made this fishing cabin. I actually made that much earlier in this series, this survival series, and there is the blueprint which I have taken just recently. So that's one I've just recently done. So our journal, basically, that is where your blueprints will be in, along with the not quite completed sort of journal entries and quests and what have you. We've come back to the castle for two reasons. One, we of course want to save this this piece of magnificent architecture, or whatever it is. Partly that, and partly because we've got the resources here which reminds me, we've got the resources here to be able to do this. So first up, we're going to smelt ourselves some gold, because bizarre as it seems, we need gold to make our blueprints with. Now I do actually have some gold ingots in here, and I've got 6 pieces of paper and 6 gold ingots, and it's actually going to take 1 gold bar and 1 piece of paper to make each of our blueprints. So it's a bit of a bizarre thing to make a blueprint out of. I'm pretty sure they're actually just paper, but that's placeholder. I imagine at some point we'll have the devs will put in some other way of making blueprints a little bit more expensive to create. So for now, we're going to make some of these. This is just in our normal bench under miscellaneous blueprint, and we're going to craft 6 of those, and that is because our map currently contains 6 builds that we want to save. So we have our castle here, which is 1, and then we have the medieval garden, which is the second one, which is that far away that realistically we have to do it as a separate build. And then we have our lighthouse there, so that's 3, and then further down the path, really quite a long way down, we have our A-frame Swedish style house, which I'm very fond of as well, so that's 4. And then we have our farmhouse, which is right on the end here, and which is the first thing we built in this world, pretty much, apart from the tiny little cabin, which I can manage to knock one of those together fairly easily, really. And then I believe this is not properly updated, but that's our bunker, which doesn't show much above ground, and that is going to be the 6th. However, I am not going to blueprint that yet, because we're not finished yet. I have a sneaking suspicion that we are not finished yet. So what we're going to do with our blueprints, we've obviously got 6 of them here. I'm going to take the first blueprint, right here, and we're actually going to use fly mode for this. Woo, I don't get to do this very often. We're going to do this because it's pretty difficult, especially with a big build like this, to actually manage to see what on earth you're doing without it. Now we do actually want to include our bridge in this as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start at the back end here of our build, and you can see we've actually got to include our cannon battery, or whatever you'd want to call it, there as well at the rear. And in order to start the whole process, we have to click our left mouse button to define a start point. Now I've done that in the wrong place, so I have to click on select area, cancel, there we go, and we actually have to put that a bit further out. So I'm going to place it sort of, there's no land there, but there is something we're going to be able to do about this if we need to. So there's our start point on that corner, and then we're going to go all the way over to the opposite corner, and we are constrained to where we've got actual land here. There we go. And you can see that's more or less got the footprint in, but not entirely. So what we're going to do, we're going to use our arrow keys to move that out as far as we need to. I don't know what the size limit is, folks. I really don't know what the size limit is. It's pretty large, is all we can say. So we're going to go all the way over here and make sure we've got... that looks like it's gone further than we actually strictly need it to. So let's not make it any bigger than we have to. There we go. And we can do that in all directions to make sure that we've got all of it in. We've got that side, I think... No, we might have missed a teeny bit off that side. Okay, so I think finally we've got the whole of the base covered. You do have to be careful to start at the appropriate side. That is to say, because the castle, I knew the castle was going to be an awkward one, because the castle is on a small island and you cannot place a blueprint in the water, that does mean you have to make sure. I should have started on the other side by the drawbridge. So basically your start point won't move backwards. There's our start point there, or rather that's the second start point, or end point. The start point won't move, so you have to ensure that that is in the correct position to begin with, because you can't move it after the fact. So there we go. We've now covered the entire of our castle footprint, and this is why I advocate the use of fly mode, because that way you can really see that you've got the whole of your structure in there with no mistakes. And then what we're going to do, and I need to be down here on this angle for this, what we're going to do is we are going to make sure that we've got the vertical covered as well. So we're going to press the plus key, so it's the plus and minus keys on your numpad, until we know that the tower has been covered all the way to the top. There we go, like so. And then when we've got that, and we know we've got it all inside the box, we simply click, right click, and then select area. We then need to put in here our castle, and we may as well call it by its proper name, Archangelos Castle. There we go. And you can even define blueprint groups if you like, but I haven't bothered with. All mine are just houses, but you can blueprint furniture or items like lampposts and what have you as well, of course, for more efficient building later on. And that is it. That is our castle done. So and I think we also, if we look in our blueprints there and look at the castle, we've actually also, because we're in a particularly good viewpoint with the fly mode, we actually got a good thumbnail of our castle as well. So we get to really see our blueprint in all its glory. So there we go. So that's our castle done. Now we're going to have to do the same thing with the garden, and the garden should be rather less awkward because the garden is much smaller. It's a much more regular shape, and it's got less in the way of vertical height to cover as well. Now what I'm not absolutely sure about, and there's our start point, is that going to be, no it's not. Okay, so we're going to cancel that. It needs to be further forward than that, and then I'm going to put our other right on the back corner here. What I am not certain about is whether our tree plantation there will also be included in this blueprint, but we can but give it a try. I believe they will be, because generally speaking, plants that we've placed and sort of cultivated and grown will also be included in our blueprints. So there we are. So that's our medieval garden, and we will name it as such when we put it in our journal. So we'll just get ourselves a fairly decent view on that for the blueprint journal. Right click, select area, and put in our medieval castle garden or medieval garden, and click create. And then there it is in the journal for all to see. So guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head off down the trail, and I am going to blueprint the other of our creations. The other creations, we've got our A-frame house there, which is one of my personal favourites as well. And we've got the farmhouse that we first started with. And then after that, as I say, we're going to leave the bunker for the moment. We've got the lighthouse. That's the first one I'm going to do. The lighthouse, the farmhouse, the A-frame house. They're all going in the journal as well, because that way when we start a new game, if we wanted to, we could quite easily put those into our world as well. So that's what we're going to do now. And then when we've done that, we're going to look at using a blueprint and sort of, using it so that the obvious other end of the process is to then use a blueprint to recreate a building. So I'll see you guys when the other... There we go. That's a bit quicker. I'll see you guys at the other end when all of our builds are safely documented in our journal. Okay, so that's it. They're pretty much all in here now. We've got our castle, the garden, we've got our lighthouse there. Not a brilliant view of the lighthouse. The lake house, and it was not very good visibility at the time. And also our farmhouse, which I call Farmhouse 2, because of course we have this farmhouse that we had in our previous save as well. So now, what we're going to do is we are going to experiment a little bit with the opposite, so using a blueprint in order to create a new building rather than just save one. So we've got our fishing cabin here on a little lake, and I thought that might be an easier one to sort of start with, because it's a smaller cabin. And the other thing, a smaller build that we don't need quite so much space for. And the other thing is that in order to build from a blueprint, I'm pretty sure that you need the resources in order to do so. At least that certainly used to be the case. But we're going to find out now anyway. So okay, so we need to open our journal. So I've got the blueprint in my hand, but this time we're going to open our journal and we're going to find our fishing cabin. Here it is. And we're going to click on Use Blueprint. And you can see that immediately it sticks in the world, our blueprint there. It's not ever so easy to see at this juncture what's going on with it, and it will have the same orientation as the previous fishing cabin had, because that is the way round that, yeah, that's the way round that cabin is. So again, I think probably flying mode is required here. Whether we can rotate this, I don't know. So what we're going to do, we're going to hit left mouse button, which freezes it in place, presumably, and then we can just move it around a teeny bit using the arrow keys, but we can't change the rotation of it. That is something that is planned later on, and it's a shame because it's actually not going to be facing the cabin there, the lake there at all. So, and there we are, hitting right mouse button places it immediately. And that just goes to show that actually you don't even need any resources in your inventory to be able to do that. The devs have put this in place just to make it easier for us to populate an area and to be able to recreate our builds. And as you can see, the plaque there, the name plaque there is, just come out of fly mode, is actually not got anything written on it whatsoever. So we can call it Fishing Cabin 2. Like that. And I think probably actually it should be further down than that, shouldn't it? It should be in the middle like that, or possibly even there. Cabin 2 like that. There we go. That's better. There we are. And otherwise it's got everything in it that our previous fishing cabin had. So it's got the barrels, of course, empty. Any containers will be empty, but it has a tomato plant sticking through the floor. Note to self: if we do this again, we may possibly have to, yes, pick any plants and destroy those beforehand. The only thing that we're missing in here is any posters. So I think we had some posters which did decorate the place a little bit. We had, I think, a goat skin or a reindeer skin or something on the wall. We had a rug on the floor. We had a fish over there. Everything else, all of our furnishings, Oops, I can't get up there. I never could get up here very well. This is what happens when you build on a very small footprint. Everything else is actually here. So there you go. A faithful representation. Oh, left that barrel open. How very careless of me. I'll put that tomato in there. And that way we can get it's a bit of a cheat perhaps to get a starter home that easily. And it is frustrating that you can't change the orientation of them. But as I say, I think the devs do say that that is planned. They're planning to be able to do that at some point. So there you go. Even without going into cheat menu, which was going to be my cunning plan. Look at that. That is just crazy, isn't it? That is a hole in the world I don't think I've got round to fixing. Yeah, even without going into creative menu, we can just recreate things just like that. But you might want to just check the area you're going to build in first to make sure that we don't end up with plants and what have you clipping straight through the floor, because that seems to happen with no trouble at all. And then the only thing that you have to replace are the items you'd probably want to change out anyway, because they'll be the things that make it a little bit more sort of custom and unique. So like my potted plant here and my various sheepskin rugs and my trophy fish on the wall. But other than that, you'll get an identical blueprint. So there we go. Okay, guys. So in the next episode, I'm planning basically on staying with this save until such time as the new player models update comes out, and because the idea is that then we've got a fresh save, so it's going to take longer, I hope, fingers crossed, before we're forced into having to change. But when you've got blueprints like this, you can quite easily switch from save to save without really losing anything. I suppose if you had a really nice house and you're really building up your supplies and your stocks and things like that, then you could, you would lose all your supplies, you'd lose all your stocks, but at least you wouldn't have to go through the grind of building your house all over again if you were forced to restart a game. So far that hasn't happened with this game, but it will happen at some point. It will come at some point when they change something that's too fundamental to the coding. So yeah, it's good to know that this is in place to sort of help us out a little bit under those circumstances. But yeah, I'm planning on continuing, if we have the time before the next update comes out, and I think we will, with the bunker actually, because there's a couple more things that I want to do with the bunker, but I don't really want to leave this save behind until such time as the next big major update has come out, so that we've got a nice new fresh save to start messing with our player models. Obviously we'll have to gather resources to craft our clothing and what have you. I'm not even entirely sure what they're going to be. Hides, I would imagine. We've got lots of hides here, but that is the kind of thing we're not going to be able to take with us. But I think at least we're going to be able to plonk ourselves down a house maybe and start sort of experimenting with that straight away, even if it's a humble house. So guys, I hope you found that sort of vaguely informative and or interesting. I certainly haven't messed with blueprints ever so much, as I say. I always feel like it's a little bit cheaty, but maybe we'll make use of it in our next save, where we do change to a new save. Possibly, possibly not. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have a bit of a think on that one. But in the meantime, it's kind of fun to play around with them. I made those blueprints absolutely legit. So we were no cheating involved apart from the flying, and you can do it without that. It's just hard to judge that you haven't chopped the top off your very tall tower or the back off your garden or something like that if it happens to end up in water. So and it's also much easier to get a decent thumbnail print for your journal of blueprints if you're flying as well, so you can actually see your build properly, which would be very useful once you've collected really quite a lot of them together. Anyway, as I say, in the next episode, we will be going right back to our bunker, which is where I'm headed right now, to carry on doing some experimental building here, because I'm very fond of it. But also, I'm going to dig a bit of a pathway through here, I think. It's a bit in the middle of nowhere, but a bunker should be, I guess. But also, there are some things that I would really quite like to add to the place, so I hope that you guys will join me. for that, I'm going to lock myself in here. And in the meantime, if you enjoyed this episode, do let me know by hitting that like button. Also, leave your comments. If you know something I don't, or something I did not mention about blueprints, please add it to the comments there. In the description to this video, I will add again the path, the file path for the blueprints folder, which is shared by every save that you have, and which is the file that you'll need to look at if you are wanting to import or export any blueprints into your game. So, or out of it. So in the meantime, guys, keep gaming, keep surviving, and stay happy. Bye-bye for now.